Tonight, Finance Minister announces 3.5 billion cedis worth of cuts in government spending with a 15% reduction in petrol and diesel at the pumps across the country.
Your government, the Akufo-Addo administration, is determined to turn things around and has the skills, discipline, and compassion to do so. But to do so, we must not allow our fortunes to be misdirected by speculators and naysayers.
We have reactions as the minority in parliament declare the measures are simply not enough.
He's lost touch with reality. He is not in tune with the state of the Ghanaian economy. We do not find his proposed measures adequate enough.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone and Prime Insurance. It was billed as the almighty speech that will save the economy from total collapse. When Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, finally acting on the orders of the president, came before the nation today, he announced a raft of cuts in government spending worth 3.5 billion cedis, some cushioning for consumers burdened by the high cost of fuel, and a cedi rescue plan. I will break down for you shortly all the measures that the finance minister laid out today at that press conference. But listen to him expressing optimism that these measures will indeed save the economy.
These measures outlined today will significantly improve the macro-fiscal situation towards a restoration of confidence and safeguard the achievement of the 2022 budget deficit target of 7.4% of the GDP. These measures have been carefully designed to ensure that growth and spending on social protection are, however, not compromised. Ladies and gentlemen, these are truly challenging times globally. No country has been spared. Government therefore calls on all Ghanaians to stand together. Together, we shall surely overcome. Your government, the Akufo-Addo administration, is determined to turn things around and has the skills, discipline, and compassion to do so. But to do so, we must not allow our fortunes to be misdirected by speculators and naysayers, those who only thrive when we allow avoidable uncertainties to hold sway in the affairs of the nation. I pray that peace be within the walls of Parliament and sobriety within its towers as we go back to Parliament to introduce our revenue bills.
My colleague Kweku is joining me now. Let's break down all the measures for you in case you're just tuning in and haven't heard what happened at the press conference. This is the breakdown. Kweku, let's go through that.
Right. So first, discretionary spending is to be further cut by 10%. It's also saying that 50% cut in fuel coupons allocation.
So let's break. The discretionary spending is generally government spending, the choices that they make in key sectors. They've already announced previously a 20% cut in that. Right. This is an additional 10% cut in government spending generally.
So apart from the 30% pay cuts that government political appointees are supposed to take, they will also take a 50% cut in fuel coupon allocation. And also with immediate effect, government says that it has imposed a complete moratorium on the purchase of imported vehicles for the rest of the year. Also with immediate effect.
Okay, and let's clarify this. This will affect all new orders.
New orders.
Vehicles, especially
four-wheel drives.
Also, so all four-wheel drives will now be put on hold. The overall effect from the finance minister is that it will reduce the total vehicle purchases by the public sector by at least 50% for the period. And then this is when they say the period, we'll get some clarity from the deputy finance minister who joins us very shortly.
Evans, there's also an immediate effect, a ban on government foreign travels except pre-approved and other statutory travels. Government says they are also concluding plans to eliminate ghost workers from the government payroll by the end of December this year. Government also says they will conclude a renegotiation of the energy sector IPP capacity charges by the third quarter of this year. This is expected to give government some funds. It will also impose a moratorium on establishment of new public sector institutions by the end of April this year. They are also prioritizing ongoing public projects over new projects. This is to enhance the efficient use of limited public resources. And government says they are reducing expenditure on all meetings and conferences by 50%, and this takes effect immediately. Also, Cabinet has approved that ministers and heads of state, just like we've heard in the past, they are
ministers and heads of SOEs,
heads of state enterprises, contributing 30% of their salaries from April to December this year to the consolidated fund. So that haircut.
So this is for a very specific period.
Yes.
So this is April to December. We don't know what will happen after that. It appears this is a very, fixed timeline for them. They also other strategies that they are employing.
In terms of the debt, they are also are pursuing a comprehensive reprofiling strategy to also reduce some of the interest rates and all that. And then they are liaising with Organized Labor and Employment Association to implement with immediate effect that declaration from Kwehu about, industrial harmony. And so those are the key issues that the government is dealing with.
And very quickly, before this, we've heard a lot about free SHS and what will happen to. We'll tell you what the finance minister has been saying about that very shortly. But let's talk about the fuel, because for many people, this was a big deal that they were anticipating. This is the finance minister announcing what they plan to do to cushion you. In terms of what you're buying at the pumps today. You've seen the increases in petrol and diesel. Kenneth Ofori-Atta says he has some measures that will lead to a 15 peso reduction.
To mitigate the impact of the rising price of petroleum products at the pump for the next 3 months, government has decided to reduce margins in petroleum price build-up by a total of 15 pesos per litre with effect from 1st April. The details are as follows. Bus margin reduced by 2 pesos per litre. Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund margin reduced by 9 pesos per litre. Fuel margin reduced by 1 peso per litre. Primary distribution margin reduced by 3 pesos per litre. We anticipate that the measures taken to strengthen the currency will help further stabilize the prices at the pump. In addition, the NPA and the Ministry of Energy are in discussions with the OMCs to reduce their margins within the spirit of burden sharing. The government will do all it can to ensure consistent supply of fuel and manage the rate of export price increase by ensuring that the Bank of Ghana has access to adequate foreign exchange to support this.
Okay, quickly. So this is a 15 peso reduction of the pumps. In percentage terms, how much is this?
So this will translate to a reduction in petrol by 1.6%. This will translate into a reduction in petrol by 1.6% and diesel 1.4%, Evans.
Okay, let's get some further clarity on some of the measures announced today, including a $2 billion, we brought that to you yesterday, $2 billion injection into the economy. This is the Ghana, the government concluding external financing arrangements of the $2 billion in the next 2 to 3 weeks, in line with approved external financing for the 2022. And we're getting some clarity on where this money is coming from. Let's speak to the Deputy Finance Minister, Abena Osei-Asare. Thank you very much, Madam Osei-Asare, for your time here on Top Story. Hello, Madam Osei-Asare. Okay, we'll try and get her back on the telephone line and get some clarity on a few things that were announced today. Very quickly, Kweku, ahead of today, we knew that it had been suggested the government was going to review some of its flagship policies, particularly the free SHS. Right. What did the finance minister say? Is this going to happen?
The finance minister says government has absolutely no intention to roll back on some of these policies, particularly free SHS.
Okay.
Let me say this. President Akufo-Addo has absolutely no intention to roll back on any major policy like the free SHS. We see education as the best enabler for sustainable economic growth and transformation and social mobility, and will do more to improve on it for it to serve more and better our children.
And that's it. So government has no intention whatsoever as when it comes to the issue of free SHS to review it as has been suggested. Let's speak to the Deputy Finance Minister now, Abano Sasari. Madam Sasari, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, let's start with the with what many consumers of petrol prices, petrol and diesel were looking forward to. One of the biggest line items that most people had complained about, the fuel. The finance minister announced today a 15% reduction, 1.6 for petrol. Is that all government could do?
Thank you very much, Evans. And I must say that we should look at the situation, in the context of high fuel prices that are not caused by any increment in taxes or anything like that. But what government seeks to address with this is that for the fuel prices, there are several items that build up the price. The taxes, yes, and then the fuel margins as well. And then sometimes the rate at which they get these foreign currency to buy fuel. So when government says, I am addressing the issue with Forex by assisting, Ministry of Finance assisting BOG to come up with some consistent supply of Forex for the BDCs and OMCs to enable them. Once that is done, it calms the market down and reduces speculation. Once it reduces speculation and they have the Forex they need, it will also translate into a fall in prices. And then two, we also have the various margins, not just by government, but BDCs and BOST and all the others. And then three, we have the government taxes. So government is saying that, on my part, looking at the measures that we have put in place, this is how much I can do. And as part of the burden sharing, I'm calling on the other players to also mark down on their margins, whilst I look at the very critical thing of providing Forex, which is also very, very important in the pricing of fuel. So that is it. Government is addressing it from various angles. And from the reduction in that angle, government says I can do 15%, whilst I look at the very important thing of giving them a reliable supply of Forex to enable them purchase.
If you put the 15 peso a litre reduction the finance minister announced today in the context of the percentage increases we've seen recently, a total of 58% by our calculation, which is since January alone, 4 cities added to it. 15 peso is woefully inadequate. Even you must agree.
That's 4 cities that you have seen, the increase of 4 cities. It is not just what we have reduced. Like I mentioned, the Forex also plays a very important role in that, because they need to translate how much they buy the dollar into cedis and then peg their fuel margins as well. So government is addressing that, which is very, very important to the pricing of fuel. So once we address that and also see the 15 pesos margin, we believe it will go a long way to bring down prices. And like I said, government is also calling on the other players to reduce their margins to see how best we can all help in this hike in fuel prices, which, is a global phenomenon. But at a domestic level, this is what we can do to bring down prices. Don't look at the 15 pesos, but look at the holistic approach that government is taking to address this. It's not just about what we have done, but like I'm telling you, the most important thing to the BDCs and the OMCs is a constant supply of Forex. That plays a very important role, so we should take that into consideration.
Last week, we heard from the Energy Ministry saying that the proposal they brought before you was asking you to consider reviewing taxes on three, taxes on three, levies on petroleum. That didn't get any traction from you?
Evans, there are so many things that the minister said that we believe it will help. When you look at the whole margin, the tax component is 15% of the total fuel cost, the petroleum cost, or at the pump. It's 15% of that. But there are other equally important things that if we should address, will help solve the problem. And for government, that is also a priority, that they address those important things, because the taxes alone is about 15% of that, but the rest are other builders that informs the price at the pump. And government says, I have addressed this 15%, and I also want to look at the other equally important ones, the 85%, and see how best I can help. So for me, I think that is what we should focus on. How are we going to help? Get them the constant supply of forex. That will also help in them reducing, their prices in the end.
This 15 peso from the finance minister, it's supposed to last for 3 months. Why 3 months and not more?
Evans, we are looking at the situation as it unfolds. When there is a need for any other thing, the minister will not shy away but come out boldly and continue to put in measures that will help reduce, the burden that has come about as a result of the global challenges that we are facing. And so it is the short-term measure that we are looking at. But as and when situations change, we will go ahead and do the needful. And that the minister was very, very clear on that one as well.
Let's go to some of the other measures that you announced today. $2 billion you plan to inject into the economy, I believe. Where is the money coming from?
Yes, Evans. When you look in the 2022 budget, we stated that there is a deficit of 7.4, and then we need to fund those deficits. So we came up with measures and plans as to how to fund those ones. So we are looking for the 2 billion. We are looking at our multilateral partners as well as our commercial partners. So it's a mix. What the 2022 budget allowed us or gave us permission to do.
So in effect, we're going to be borrowing 2 billion to inject.
Evans, it's like this. You increase taxes, or the other one, you look for funds elsewhere to enable you carry out your planned program and activities. And so let's not shy away from that. It's two things. You generate the revenue yourself through domestic taxes. And how do you generate the revenue? By increasing your taxes or coming up with tax measures that you believe will help you close the gap. On the other hand, too, if it means you have to get assistance through the market to enable you close the gap, that is also done. So we are looking at the two, and that is why we are impressing upon Parliament to help us pass the electronic transaction levy, the fees and charges levy, and also address and help us conclude on the exemptions bill, which we believe will introduce some efficient measures in the way we handle our exemptions, and also the other bills help us increase the revenues that we need to reduce our reliance on borrowing.
Do I get the impression that this $2 billion was announced today is dependent on the passage of the e-levy?
Evans, I never said that it's dependent
I'm
on
asking
the
for
passage
clarity.
of the e-levy.
I'm just asking for clarity. Is it dependent on it?
No, nobody said that. The minister never said that, and I haven't said that. Like I said, in any economy, you will need revenue to help you achieve your economic targets for a particular period. And so you either rely on revenues generated domestically, or you go for revenues outside, which is going to the market to get some assistance to enable you close that gap. So that is what we are doing. It's a combination of the two.
Today, you were also announced cuts. You are going to take a cut of 30% in your salary. There's also a moratorium on the importation of new vehicles, SUVs. There's also a moratorium on traveling. In the early years of your government in 2017, we had similar measures. Many will tell you that really didn't work. Why would they work now?
Ivan, it did work in 2017. Yes, when you check the budget on vehicles that were purchased in 2017, clearly you see that there was a drastic reduction in the purchase of vehicles, in 2017. What we are trying to put across is that as much as possible, let us reduce our reliance on imported vehicles. We have car manufacturing companies locally that we believe we can also support by buying locally. But what we are saying is that let us look within the budget that we have allocated for vehicles, and as much as possible, because we are in a different environment altogether as a result of the global crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic, we will need to come up with different measures to help us in this regard to live within our deficit of 7.4% of GDP. So we're saying that we will reduce or cut it drastically to about 50%. We did that in 2017 and we saw some improvement. And we believe that it will also go a long way if we should do it in 2022 to help us. On the average, we have a rough estimate of how much the ministries, departments, and agencies. It is not politicians, but the ministries, departments, and agencies also purchase vehicles to enable them carry out the activities. But on the average, we have an idea of how much they spend. And we're saying that we're looking at that and asking that let us reduce that quantum and see if we can make some savings there. We did that in 2017. We saw some savings. So we believe that this time around too, it will work and we'll see some savings.
The fuel coupons, how much are you hoping to save with this cut?
We are hoping to save close to about 62 million Ghana cedis with this, because it cuts across, like I said.
And the 30% salary cut? How much do you expect in the consolidated fund at the end of the year?
The 30% salary cut, I believe that we will get you the exact numbers, but we are looking at somewhere close to just a minute, please. Let me just
no problem.
Go over my...
We'll also hear from Dr. Kisatu Fosun very shortly, who's been on the line with us very quietly. I want to hear his thoughts. I want to get the clarity first before we hear the other reactions. Madam, sorry, if you're ready, we'll take it.
You know, it's not just the amount that we are saving, but it's all, for me, it is also the fact that we all see that there's a need to do something, and everybody is putting, his or her shoulders to the wheel to make it happen. I don't have the exact figures on top of my head, but I can get you that figure of the amount of money that we are saving in this regard, because it cuts across not just on public government of Ghana payroll, but also the SOEs as well. Yes, so that is why I cannot give you, including the SOEs. So as soon as we get that figure ready, I'll let you.
And this cut is up until the end of the year.
Yes,
it begs the question: why that time frame? Is it that you are confident that by the end of the year you will no longer need the cuts in the salary?
So we are, like I mentioned before, it is this budget that we are trying, despite the fact that some occurrences have happened, and so it has affected our macroeconomic targets. It is in the 2022 budget that we are trying as much as possible to continue to meet those targets, especially with a deficit of 7.4% of GDP. So that is why we are speaking to this particular financial year. But some of our measures go beyond this year. Some are in the medium term and some are in the long term. But in the immediate term, we are hoping that we will be able to carry this salary adjustment through the rest of the year.
And I heard today that in all the cuts, you expect to rake in 3.5 billion. 3.5 billion cedis. In all. I need some small final clarity on the $2 billion. Do we have the fiscal space to rely on the international banks? I heard today from the finance minister and our donor partners, and because some of it will definitely have to come up in loan. Do we have the fiscal space to take this?
Like I told you, these are items in the 2022 budget that we are trying to implement. So it is not outside the budget. These are items that Parliament approved for us in the 2022 budget. And so we are just carrying out implementing the budget. And as part of implementing the budget, we are looking for other sources of funding to help us. And we stated this clearly in the 2022 budget, which Parliament approved. So it's not outside the budget. It is within what Parliament has approved. We are only implementing the budget that Parliament has approved for us for 2022.
And I see it is for, quote, liability management. What's that exactly?
Liability management is managing our debts and seeing how best we can exchange the relatively expensive ones for, when I say relatively expensive ones, I mean relative with those with higher interest with the relatively cheaper ones, so that we can make some savings there. In 2017, we did that. It's called the debt reprofiling. We did that and we're able to save about 600 million in interest payments. So that is what we are looking at doing as part of it. We use some of the money to buy back the expensive ones so that we make some space in the area of interest payments.
Thank you very much, Madam Osasare. She's a Deputy Finance Minister. Her predecessor is joining me right now, Dr. Kesela Tofosing, a ranking member of the Finance Committee. Dr. Tofosing, thank you for your patience. At least we've got some clarity on a host of issues. What's your reaction? What's your reaction to everything you've just heard?
Evans, to start with, I was upbeat. Obviously, after the announcement coming from the central bank on their monetary policy committee, and the way there was a hype that the minister's statement was going to solve a lot of problems and bring back confidence. I have to tell you that I'm worried than ever after listening today. I say this for a simple reason, that the minister's speech today was simply empty. In fact, what it's going to do is that it's going to erode all the confidence the central bank brought into the economy after the announcement. Because the investors, not only me, they're also certainly worried. But I say this for a simple reason. Number one, what this government did today, without quantifying properly the impact of the measures that they have announced, I do not see any significant change in what they are going to do. For example, they talked about the energy sector IPPs and said that it's going to accrue some 1.5 billion. It is already not in the budget. It's already not in the budget. And then went ahead to say that they are going to cut fuel coupons and it's going to bring about 52 million. 52 million? Is that all? And the deputy minister could not even tell us how much the 30% cut is going to accrue to the state? Is that all? Is that the reason why they hyped such a speech and created the impression that they are going to solve the problems of the economy? I'm disappointed. I am highly disappointed. Because then, Evans, I was expecting that the minister responsible for finance would have announced to all of us that they are going to have a moratorium on new loans. Simply because we are where we are, because our debt is going up and up and up an increasing rate. And for that reason, investors sitting somewhere in London or New York thinks that we are not in a position to repay our debt. So at the minimum, the minister should have announced a moratorium on new loans while pointing to us what he's going to do to bring down the debt, and obviously pointing to the fact that we are not going to default.
Yeah, I mean, but
you couldn't do that.
You've just heard the Deputy Finance Minister clarify that there's an additional 2 billion that they are also now in negotiations to get.
So that is even going to make it worse. 2 billion is already. Your debt to GDP per what I've seen is 83%. If you are to add the extra bond to it, 83% of your GDP. In fact, going to add additional $2 billion in debt will increase our debt by about 15 to 16 billion Ghana cedis. 15 to 16 billion Ghana cedis additional debt. What are they talking about? I'm surprised. I was also expecting that the minimum, we had the minister responsible for information when he said that they were going to review all the flagship projects. All of a sudden they have retreated. In fact, they have gone back on their own promise. So they said this just for all of us to be upbeat and for investors to be upbeat that at least we are going to see some sort of discipline in expenditure, only for them to come back to tell us that that is not what they are going to do. I'm worried. On the back of the domestic front,
I mean,
fuel prices has been going up.
Yeah, before the fuel, just give me your quick thoughts on this. You've talked about the cuts not being enough, but she just gave us a figure of they are expecting to break back 3.5 billion from all these cuts. That is significant, is it not?
How are they going to make it? They should tell us. how they arrive at the 3.5 billion. How did they arrive at 3.5 billion?
All the cuts. I mean, so from the salaries
It's impossible. It's simply a lie.
To the vehicles.
Let me call it a lie. It's not the case. They should tell us what they said. How much in salaries? How much in fuel coupon to make the 3.5 billion? It's a lie. And they should come clean. Call them and tell them that I'm telling them that is a lie. I've done the math myself, and they are nowhere near 2 billion.
So how much?
They are nowhere near 2 billion.
How much did you get in your calculation?
I am telling you that all the cut they put together is about 500 million Ghana cedis.
500 million. That's 500
million. 500 million. The energy sector IPPs of 1.5 billion is not in the budget, so it's not a cut. So put that aside. What is in the budget and all what they are trying to do is not up to a billion Ghana cedis. Maximum, that is what it is.
But if it so this is the 3.5 billion from 10% discretionary cuts, 50% cut in fuel coupon, 50% cut in as in the a moratorium on purchase of imported vehicles, right?
Yes.
Immediate effects. Government has imposed moratorium on foreign travels. That alone is significant. We know how much they spend there. Payroll, ghost names. They're going to eliminate ghost names. That's going to have some value. IPPs, 1.5 billion. You say the IPPs alone, you dispute that?
IPPs, they are already not in the budget. So if we are talking about a cut in what is already in the budget, put the IPPs aside. And let's look at what is already in the budget.
Well, they talk about
52 million are getting on the back of what you call the fuel coupons. 52 million. How much is the others? They should come clean and tell us.
Yeah,
how much
but they've also talked about establishment of new public sector institutions, a moratorium on that. If you look at the budget,
how much was already budgeted? And how much are they cutting to make sure that money will not go out?
Yeah, and but also significantly, there's another line here that I think maybe we haven't looked at, but also can save a lot. There is also, they are not going to pursue new projects, new public projects, all on hold, only focusing on ongoing public. That's significant. All new projects on hold, only ongoing public projects will be undertaken. That's significant.
Evans, I sat at the finance committee working with government to approve the budget. There was very little new project in the budget. There's this particular budget looked at the pipeline. So they should tell us what they are doing. And that is why I have suggested earlier on that the alternative will be that they should have a hold on all the foreign finance projects already in the budget. That would have saved them about 5 billion Ghana cedis. 5 billion Ghana cedis. 50%, even if they cut 50%, they could save 5 billion Ghana cedis. So they're only beating about the bush. Unfortunately, what they have done, they have unwind all the goodwill the central bank announcement came with. In fact, we are back to Batan, sadly.
And very finally, we had the finance minister, the deputy finance minister also confirmed today that they are going to come. In fact, the time frame the finance minister gave when it comes to the e-levy is that they will come to Parliament and they are confident they will get it passed before you go on recess before end of March. Are you? Well, what's your reaction to that?
Well, we are in Parliament waiting for them to come. We have stated our position clearly on the e-levy, so we can only wait for them to table it so that we can obviously debate the bill before us, and then we can make our position known to the people of Ghana. So we are waiting for them. The ball is in their court. They can bring it tomorrow if they want, but we are certainly waiting for them as the minority.
Thank you, Dr. Kaysel Atoforsen. He speaks for the minority on finance. He's a former deputy finance minister himself. It's now time to hear from you, the bread and butter reaction to what the finance minister has announced today. You've heard the fuel reductions that has been announced today. And tonight on Newsnight, the commercial transport operators, they are already reacting, kicking against government's planned 15 peso reduction in fuel prices as they push to increase transport fares from next week, following a more than 10% cumulative increase in fuel prices.
So should they reduce those 15%?